وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Good morning. How the coronavirus may change humanity permanently. Some people say the virus is bringing out the worst in humans. Others believe the pandemic will change the world to be a better place by bringing people closer together. Traditional concepts, practices, and definitions may also change. For example, what will become of patriotism after coronavirus? The armed forces cannot shoot a virus, but doctors and nurses can. What about faith? People now worship at home rather than in churches, mosques, and synagogues. We have a group of distinguished guests who would discuss how the coronavirus may change us, may change the world and humanity. They are Dr.Abdalmajid Katranji, a surgeon and political analyst, Dr. Ibrahim Kazerooni, the Imam of the Islamic Center of America in Michigan, and Mr. Ahmed Shueib, an economic analyst in New York. And New York, of course, now is going through a hard time. My first question goes to all my three guests, and it is, what is the most significant change that will result of the coronavirus? And let me start with Dr. Katranji.
I think the most significant change is that we're going to be dealing with, and let me start by saying good morning, welcome to everybody and your guests, and thanks for having this wonderful show. I think the most significant change that we're going to be finding is that we're going to be dealing with things like this more often in the future because we're in a greater global interconnected world. And this virus in of itself is not going to disappear the way people conceptualize it disappearing. It's not going to show up one day and never show up again. This particular virus is actually called the SARS-CoV-19 virus. So what we do know is that this is one of the SARS viruses, which is the systemic acute respiratory syndrome and virus. And we know that this particular coronavirus is an evolution of another virus, so that as people become more and more resistant, we'll have a tolerance to this virus, but eventually this virus will change again, and then, or something similar to it will change again, and then we'll be dealing with another type of virus. So people have to understand that these types of epidemics and pandemics are likely going to become more common in the future as we maintain a world that interacts globally, which, by the way, has both great positives in terms of economics and medicine and social issues, as well as the potential negatives, in which is how do you contain something like this while maintaining the world's interconnectivity.
Thank you. Dr. Kazerooni.
Well, I would like to start by echoing the sentiment expressed by a previous speaker and say good morning, assalamu alaikum to everyone. I think the effect of the virus varies from country to country depending on their demographic, social income, and various other factors. But I tend to agree that it's what is called sometimes in the theological narrative a singular event. It's going to change the way we perceive, the way we behave, the way we deal things. But I'm not an expert in medicine to be able to say whether this is going to continue or not continue. Certainly, in a number of factors that we have to deal with in our community, it has brought the worst and the best in different people. We saw looting, and at the same time, we saw extreme altruism from the communities. We heard of a priest that gives up his ventilator to a younger man, and we saw the Walmart events around the country. We have seen changes from an individualism attitude to more towards collectivism, and a society that primarily had no consideration and faith and worship and so on had no part of their priorities. They are moving more and more towards some kind of this mystery or God, whatever we want to call it, or religion. But it has, I agree that there are a number of issues here that must be discussed, but I believe the most profound effect is going to be through economic effect, particularly in societies that we have around us, where we live, where there is wealth, unequal wealth distribution, racism, poverty, and xenophobia, how these people are going to be affected by various steps that we should take to prevent the spreading of the disease. We certainly are for a rough time ahead, and we have to prepare ourselves for it.
Mr. Shueib.
Yes, Doctor, good morning to you and your distinguished guests. Coronavirus is, or the outbreak or whatever, I have, some issues agreeing with, calling Corona. The whole world map will change economically. This is my analysis to what's going on right now, especially for the capitalism countries. On the top of it is U.S., China, and Russia. The whole world will change economically, policies, politics. It's going to be a new map after this outbreak is over. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions and just give explanation of what's going on. This is not just happened now. This has been prepared for the last year or two that this will happen. There's a lot of question marks.
We will be discussing more and more questions, economic and international relations and behavior and faith and religion. But let me go back to Dr. Katranji. And Dr. Katranji, you said that the virus will not disappear because of scientific factors. But let me ask you this. The influenza, is also, it also comes in several forms. And right now, we can take a vaccine that, yes, it doesn't protect us from all kinds of flus, but at least a lot of them, most of them. So how do you anticipate the world coming up with a vaccine that will take care of, if not the entire coronavirus series, but at least most of them?
Well, I think that's definitely something that's going to be possible because the technology that we have today is far more advanced than even when we designed the flu vaccines. We're now able to do research, clinical research, sequencing of the entire genome of the virus, of the coronavirus, and all other viruses in a matter of days, where we would have indications of what kind of genes we were dealing with by older techniques, PCR techniques, that took sometimes weeks to months. Remember, the flu itself changes and evolves, and at times has a deadlier form, and at times has a safer form. The deadliest form we know of was the Spanish flu epidemic nearly 100 years ago. And you hear the death rates of people between 26 million and 110 million people across the globe that died from, and it was called the Spanish flu. Even as early as 8 years ago, there was a virus called the swine flu, or the H1N1, which was also a form of influenza, which nearly killed 100,000 people in the United States. So there are particular behaviors of these viruses as humans interact. Obviously, we develop immunity to the weaker forms, and at times nearly destroy them. But remember, viruses are also interacting with their environments, picking up new genes and new proteins. That's why, for instance, we have things called bacterial resistance, right? Where bacteria are resistant to antibiotics. They don't just get that by alone; they get that by interacting with other things in their environment. And so this is push and pull between us fighting and them fighting back. But the encouraging thing is, and I do believe optimistically, I do think in the next several months we will have some form of vaccine and antiviral to help combat this virus. But as we know with the flu, it's going to be very hard to eliminate this virus in its entirety. Smallpox, for instance, is a virus that we know that we believe we've almost completely eradicated. But we don't know. Remember, we know that the smallpox is also a cousin to a virus called the cowpox. And so they're all related, and they can all interact. So they may seem to disappear or fade for a while. And if we don't maintain good health protocols, good hygiene protocols, good public health systems, we're always at risk of the system breaking down and leaving us vulnerable to new diseases as they come across. But in terms of finding a vaccine, it's a matter of looking at the virus, seeing how and where it attacks the human body, and then also identifying those human beings that got the virus and what type of antibodies they formed. So you're looking at two things at the same time. And what they do then is they find a connection or a protein that seems to be universal for how the virus interacts with us, that is also universal to how we fight that protein. And then we develop a vaccine that when we put it in our bodies form an immunity. We will form the antibody, the protein that fights that protein. So think of it like two pieces of Legos. One Lego would be our antibody, the other Lego would be the protein we're fighting. And once those two Legos are stuck together, then that virus can't do anything. Our body then destroys that virus. And so eventually, we're going to come up with those Legos that stack around that virus that we can do in an injectable form. Or we come up with a medicine called an antiviral. An antiviral basically is a medicine that substitutes the construction material that the virus uses to replicate itself. And what we do is we trick that virus to take this material to build itself rather than the stuff that it takes from our own bodies to build itself. And then that ends up killing the virus. The most common antiviral people take right now is for people with HIV, because we give them something called acyclovir, and the virus gets confused and takes the acyclovir to build itself, which actually ends up destroying it, than using the human body's material.
Okay, Dr. Katranji, as a doctor, I'm going to ask you a little later about some misconceptions or what you would advise people to do to better protect themselves. But for now, I have a question for Imam Kazerooni about behavior, but we'll do that after we come back from the break.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
If halal is important to your family, you can trust that Miramar will offer not only the highest quality halal products, but the best tasting and healthiest foods that can be placed on your family table with confidence. Miramar is the first and oldest halal certified food brand in America, serving the Arab and Muslim community and offers a wide range of halal food products. Check out Miramar's halal food selection today by visiting Miramar's exclusive distributor, Ziad Brothers Importing at www.ziad.com.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We are discussing how the coronavirus might change humanity, might change us, might change the world, either temporarily or permanently. Our guests are Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, a surgeon and a political analyst, Dr. Ibrahim Kazerooni, the Imam of the Islamic Center of America in Michigan, and Mr. Ahmed Shueib, an economic analyst in New York. Let me go now with a question for Mr. Kazerooni, Imam Kazerooni. You talked about how the coronavirus may change our behavior, the need at least to change our behavior. Give us some examples, please.
Well, sure. Unfortunately, we live in a society that for part of, call it the capitalist system, whatever you want to call it, individualism, advocation for every individual to be the center of the world you are, and your interest dominates everything else, was a factor in what we saw during the early part of the crisis that we are going through. We saw humanity at its best, and we saw humanity at its worst. We saw hoarding, fighting, total disregard for others, and we have, local newspapers even published a number of examples of this. A lady goes into a shop and wants to buy a loaf of bread, sees a man having at least 20, 30 loaves of bread in his cart, and there is nothing on the shelf for this lady to take. She asked him that you really don't need this. I need just one bag and one loaf. And his response was, tough luck. you should have come out early. So we see this kind of attitude. At the same time, we see that unbelievable altruism where families or friends organize a team very early in the morning. They identify individuals and families that they are poor, needy, and destitute within their community due to the unequal wealth distribution that we have within our society. And quietly they go around, make a deal with various shops and purchase a number of essential items and put them in boxes and just leave them in front of these houses without even the owner knows or finding out who brought these. So we see these two. We have seen fighting takes place in local shops, whether it is Walmart or some other places. And we see people that are trying to calm the situation down. So unfortunately, if we just focus on these two issues and the fact that we have in our society poverty sometimes to the extreme, and then doctors can talk about whether we can find some kind of an antivirus or something, a medication. But some of these people that we have seen, because of their poverty and marginalization, they cannot even afford. They don't have insurance to cover them. So here is the time where challenges can be turned into opportunities. So we have got these two conflicting or two extreme sides of the continuum to deal with. We constantly have not only what the Islamic Center and other faith institutions organize, we try to remind people that you really have a responsibility towards your fellow human being that are living with you. So this is one of the critical issues that we have to work with.
Mr. Ahmed Shueib, you talked about capitalism, the impact of the virus in terms of capitalism. Are you talking about the collapse of capitalism?
No, not at all. I will talk in like especially the U.S. and I've seen a lot of videos and on the social media, and people are very happy about what's going on in America. America's over, no more world leadership anymore, and etc. America went through 17 recessions in the American history and one Great Depression, as we all know. America recovered. America, after 1990 collapse of the Soviet Union, she changed the whole world economic policy, and the whole world became, not the whole world, the Western world became something, as we know in Arabic, al-awlama. So America made the entire world attached to her economy, to her policy. She took full control of the Security Council and the UN. Even in elections around the world, America will choose who will lead any country on the face of the earth. China was working in a silence, as as usual. China spread in Africa. China started to compete very hard with the United States by buying bonds, real estate, and a lot of things in the U.S. Trade deficit increased between China and the United States. America, as we all know, have the world gold reserves here in the U.S. America have over $50 trillion from investors all around the world. America have $10 trillion reserves. If America fail, the entire world will fail. America, they designed a new financial system based on if something happened to her, if she goes down, the whole world will go down. So this is just to let people that they're very happy about what's going on. America will recover. America will come back. again and again and again. So this is not something new for the U.S. Just a lot of issues between China, Russia, the U.S., and some of the European countries, as we know what happened on when England was forced to exit the euro countries, and now we see all the difference between Spain, Italy, the European Union. That it will be changed after this Corona is over. How it's going to be changed? Who's going to lead? Of course, America still will lead. We don't know yet. We still didn't know exactly what happened from January until now. It's a lot of question marks. We don't know if this is virus, corona, or was a biological, issue. We don't know. What I see, and I will give example or why I came up with my thought. The order everybody stay home. That's fine. Costco is full of people. My branch is in the middle of Stop and Shop Plaza. Line until yesterday. 27 people on a warship in the middle of the ocean. They got infected with corona. That's what they say. How did they get it from? Why corona did not reach Africa, Latin America? It's only, the cases over there. These are the people that they travel into this country. So when it's a virus, and as they see it's the outbreak, and it's a wabah. Wabah, it takes everything. So
we will discuss the aspects of the impact on international relations. We'll do that further, but let me go back quickly to Dr. Katranji. And the question is, give us some better ways for people to protect themselves. Are there misconceptions on how to protect yourself? So what is the most important thing people need to know and need to do to better protect themselves?
So, subhanAllah, this is almost like an intersection between faith and medicine. Even Rasul alayhi salam, and Hadith Sahih actually advised people that if there is an area in which a epidemic is happening, don't go to it. And if you are in an area where the epidemic is spreading, don't leave that area. So fundamentally, the concept of social distancing was a component of solid advice even 1,400 years ago. That's the most important is that try to maintain distances. These viruses are transmitted one of two ways: either by direct contact, so hand-to-hand contact, and then what happens is a lot of times we touch our face, our eyes, our nose. We wipe around our mouth. Little things that we do anyway, because like you'll get a little itch around your eye or your nose itches, and then you put your hand, and then the virus is delivered into this type of skin, the wet skin around your eyes and your nose and your mouth, called the mucosa. And then that's where the virus can then penetrate through. Or it's transmitted by droplet. So therefore somebody sneezes in the air, and therefore that air is now suddenly filled with whatever was inside your lungs. And what happens is, if you happen to be nearby, then you have the potential for those droplets. You don't even have to see anything that's gross. It can be even on a microscopic level. And if you breathe that in, it can get into your system and affect you that way. So those are the two most common ways these things are. So obviously, if you sneeze or you cough, please, have something nearby to block your mouth or wear a mask. Because that's going to provide the protection, not necessarily for you because you're already sneezing and coughing, but that's going to provide protection for your neighbor or your friend or your mother or your father, brother, sister that's within that same space. And so again, personal space and respect of personal distance is, subhanAllah, also something fundamental in our faith as Muslimin. And I think it's part of other faiths as well. The last component is obviously maintaining hygiene by washing frequently, which is also another component of what we do. Here, washing your hands with soap is going to be important. That if you touch surfaces, because we don't know if the big X factor about this virus is how long does this virus survive on a table or on a glass or on a cup. That if somebody a few hours later comes by and touches that glass cup or cardboard or something, will they get infected? Now, we know the chances are very low, but we still know that some of these viruses, some variation of this same virus, seems to last a little bit longer on surfaces. So wiping down surfaces, using, for instance, your own personal material and don't interchange with others is another way to kind of stay protected. So those are the easy, fundamental, readily accessible ways to keep clean. Alcohol, the alcohol sanitizing wipes, it's a very good way to kill the virus. Okay, but you still have to wash your hands to get the grime away, so that things go away. So definitely use alcohol sanitizer, use sanitizing wipes, but when you do that, make sure you also wash your hands to wash away anything that's stuck in any residual material. Now, in terms of some of the idea about spreading, so I know there's some idea that people think this virus may be a chemical weapon or a biological weapon or thing. Remember, it could be. I'm not saying it can't be, and it's impossible. But what I would tell everybody to understand, we had smallpox, we had tuberculosis, we had influenza, we know about the bubonic plague, we know about cholera outbreaks. Sometimes, in some cases, it was known that they would give, for instance, when they traded with Native Americans here in the United States, early traders, they would give blankets with smallpox on it, because the Native Americans had no immunity. So we do know where these things can be, quote unquote, weaponized as biological weapons. And by the way, the smallpox and other diseases killed millions more Native Americans than any fighting. It's actually, most people don't realize Native Americans didn't lose this country because they lost wars. It's because they got sick from the diseases that came in from the Europeans, both intentionally and unintentionally. So, but at the same time, we also know that mice carry dangerous bacteria. I'm sorry, rats, not mice. We also know mosquitoes carry malaria. We also know bats carry the coronavirus. So we also have to then say, look, that politics aside, we need to now think practically. We could always figure out later where this came from, but we need to look at what we can do in the here and now to protect ourselves and each other so that we can discuss this when we're all healthy, inshallah, in the summer, in our patios, in our barbecues.
Thank you, Dr. Katranji. When we come back from the break, I will ask Dr. Kazerooni to talk to us about the role of faith, of religion in dealing with the coronavirus after the break.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imam Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imam Nakash. See Dr. Imam Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937. Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood 734-744-9796.
Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We are talking about the changes that may result from our fight with the coronavirus. Dr. Ibrahim Kazerooni, you talked about selfishness, about individualism, and I want to ask you, of course, you heard Dr. Katranji talking about how the wisdom existed some 1400 years ago. So what is the role of faith in dealing with the virus?
I tend to agree. I mean, when Dr. Katranji talked about a hadith, there are even verses in the Holy Quran. There is a verse, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بَأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, that anything that creates or might generate harm, one should stay away from it. The problem is that the role of the Islamic Center or any faith center is multifaceted when it comes to dealing with these crises. First of all, we really need to calm the community down and for them not to panic, not to lose hope. Number two, to support the doctors and the frontline heroes that we have within our community. And as much as we can, we had huge amount of reaction from people when we decided at the Islamic Center to cancel any congregational prayer, be it Friday prayer or daily prayers, and only allow individuals to come in if they want to offer prayer by themselves. We have to deal with the crisis that has developed within as a consequence of the virus itself. Some of the points that I raised earlier and just briefly discussed. Now we know that families that used to come to the center, poor families, and they receive direct support from the center. Now they cannot come out of their house, so we have to go in some way and provide them and support them with food boxes, etc., etc. There are a number of centers that are doing that within our community. We support other institutions to do that. So the role of faith is multifaceted within the community that already has some kind of a linkage. What we are seeing these days is a new phenomena where people who never even cared about Islamic centers or any faith centers, in this crisis, suddenly they called me and we would like to discuss. We would like to find out how we can stabilize our life through faith, whether they were agnostic before or nothing at all. Now, particularly within the youth, they are coming back to the Islamic Center asking for guidance. So the role of the center, faith has become one of the major components in our life these days. Even for people that had no connection with the center, they are coming back to ask if we can provide them with some kind of formula, call it, that their lives could be more stabilized and they feel more secure, because at the moment they really are. I mean, this crisis has caused such a turbulence within their life that they are searching for solutions. So these are a number of issues that we deal with.
Can I add something real quick from even from a medical perspective on what the Imam just said?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
So remember, human beings by fundamental nature, we're social animals. Psychological stability is as important. So the dynamic that the Imam referenced is critical. Is that if we become disconnected in so many ways from each other, from the societal infrastructure that existed prior to this viral epidemic. So, for instance, you'd have 6 people at a dinner table looking at Facebook, looking at their phones, and not even talking to each other. That's if they even sat at a dinner table together. Now you actually have families finally talking and seeing each other for the first time, even though they've lived with each other for 5 to 10 years. Those actual reestablishment of those emotional social connections are actually vital for the health of people. And the connection to some form of spiritual guidance gives you a reconnection to the whole. The idea of, for me as a Muslim, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it might be for somebody to Mother Earth, etc. But there is a significant health benefit, stabilizing factor by feeling connected to something larger than yourself, so that as we become isolated by necessity, these venues that the Islamic Center provides, the churches provide, synagogues, temples, etc., give people the opportunity to connect to something greater themselves, because we know by medical research that people who pray over each other, P-R-A-Y, and are prayed upon, like I pray for you to get better, for whatever reason, we cannot still explain it, seem to get better, seem to get healthier. And some people will tell you that boosts your immune system. We also know the vitality that this isolation, for people who suffer from depression or who have no family, they actually are suffering miserably. They actually get worse. Their health problems exacerbate because they're so disconnected. So it becomes even more imperative to try to, even though we're socially distant, to try to communicate to each other, use these forms of media to reassure each other, to reestablish these emotional connections, because there's better immunity when you feel better, when you feel happier, when you feel connected.
Dr.
I just want to add one point.
Comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing. It seems to be that the role of the faith and the medical establishment somehow overlaps, because it was strange that Dr. Katranji was talking about various steps that we should take as far as prevention, whether it's handshaking, etc. I delivered a lecture yesterday. As a consequence of this crisis, we cannot deliver openly, we have to deliver online. And the theme of my lecture yesterday was how to learn the new etiquette of the coronavirus. And I somehow unpacked a number of steps that we really need to take. Yes, it is part of our social behavior that when we meet somebody, we give them a hug, the comforting hug, the notion of the touch in social relationship. But these are not normal times. These are exceptional times or different times. We really need to learn this to prevent the harm that we may do to somebody else, because when we touch a surface and then we don't pay attention, this could become deadly, not only to ourselves and our family, to other people. So it's just repeatedly telling the congregation and communicating with them by phone and calling them to find out how they are doing, and encouraging them to text, even a text, so that these lonely individuals or people that are living by themselves to ask them, or their family members that they haven't seen for some time, to ask who they are. At home, to be able to communicate and literally create a different environment rather than the media that the social media that they used to. So faith plays a different role and a multi-role here in this society.
When we come back from the break, we will talk about the impact of the virus on international relations. And my question will go to Mr. Shueib about the emergence of China and how that will mean for the international community. After the break.
مرحبا سعيد.
اهلا علا.
ليش هالمقابله الفاتره هي؟ بيقول المثل لاقيني ولا تغديني.
يما زعلتي، شنو رايك اذا لقيتك وايضا غديتك باحسن مطاعم ميشيغان، مطعم اشتار؟
والله فكره، افضل الاطباق والمقبلات العربيه والعراقيه واحلى ملقا.
ولا تنسين اللحوم الطازجه مباشره من ملحمه اشتار لزباين اشتار، وملحمه اشتار توفر اختيارات متنوعه من كافه انواع اللحوم وباسعار متميزه وجوده ايضا مميزه. ملحمة إشتار تقع على 36865 راين رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايتس.
وأكيد أحلى لمة وأطيب لقمة في مطعم عشتار اللي عنوانه 3625 15 مايل رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايتس. هاتف 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
يلا علا
يلا عشتار، للجودة وكرم الضيافة عنوان
مطعم عشتار.
مركز طب رهاب للعلاج الطبيعي بإدارة الدكتور محمد فرح حسين، أخصائي العلاج الطبيعي بخبرة أكثر من 13 عاما. طب رهاب يقدم خدمات العلاج الطبيعي وإعادة التأهيل، ويضم مجموعة من أفضل أخصائي التشخيص الدقيق للحالات المرضية، مع خبرة عالية في التعامل مع الحالات التي تحتاج إلى إعادة تأهيل وعناية خاصة بعد العمليات والكسور. طب رهاب يستقبل كل الحالات المتعلقة بألم الرقبة، الظهر، المفاصل، شلل الوجه، الانزلاق الغضروفي، عرق النساء، الحوادث وإصابات العمل. خبيرات في المعالجة النسائية لخصوصيات تامة للسيدات. عندما تبحثون عن رعاية متميزة اقصدوا طب رهاب للعلاج الطبيعي، الواقع على 15001 ميشيغان افنيو. وللمواعيد اتصلوا على 313-846-0555. That's 846-0555.
كل ساعة عم بستناك مشان نروح نتغدى بالشام.
بالشام؟
ايه بالشام ومو بالشام.
شلون صارت هي؟
بدل ما نروح نتغدى بالشام
ايه
جابوا لنا الأكلات الشامية الطيبة لعنا لهم.
وشلون بقى؟
هذا مطعم دماس عم يعمل كل الأكلات الشامية الطيبة هو.
طيبة؟
طيبة كتير.
شرفوا نتغدى سوا بمطعم دماس.
الأكل الشامي الأصيل فقط بدماس كوزين. زوروهم على 28841 أرشد لك بفارمينغتون هيلز، ولطلباتكم اتصلوا على 248-987-4609. That's 248-987-4609. دماس كوزين and catering، جبنا لكم الشام لعندكم.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi, how the coronavirus may change the world and humanity. We have a group of distinguished guests, Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, Dr. Ibrahim Kazerooni, and Mr. Ahmed Shueib. And Mr. Shueib, I have a question for you. When you talked earlier about the waning American leadership in the world and how China may emerge as a replacement for America, now you know that China's emergence as a leader will also mean the predominance of communism. Do you accept that?
Um, of course not. Communism, failed, and the way the population for all the communism countries in the past, uh, they had terrible standard of living, and they wanted uh, to get their freedoms and to get paid the way they deserve. So they were always looked at the Western world as a dream for them to become and live the same way that uh, populations in the Western world, they have the same standard of living or at least closer to them. We saw a lot of, movies and cases, from the Eastern countries. They jump walls and, borders, so they can escape from the communism hell. So, of course, communism will never gonna come back, and China in particular, they always work silent. They not, they don't show, they don't show off. Um, as I mentioned earlier, as a matter of fact, I had my program, my show last week on TV. I spoke about that. American economy, and in particular, uh, the New York Stock Exchange is the الواجهة أو الفيس that the whole world wait until the New York Stock Exchange ends so they can determine what will happen the next day for their stock market. So it, again, nothing stay forever. We learn that from our religion. We learn that from the history. But at this time, the whole world is unstable economically and politically. There is no leader right now that who can lead the world. The international community, it's in the bottom. They cannot make decisions. They cannot resolve any situation around the world, especially in the Middle East. As we all know, the United Nations after World War II was created to keep peace, and part of it is the General Assembly, part of it is the International Court of Justice. All the systems failed completely, as we all know. The world will change politically and economically. But how, the leaders, وعلى رأسهم America, China, are they going to work together, or all system will be breaking? God knows. God knows.
Can I interject here?
I'm sorry?
Can I interject and make a comment?
Oh, sure.
On Brother Shueib's comment? I tend to agree with him. First of all, I would like to say something. Any assessment of international relations, political issues, depend on the location of the assessor and how he perceives ontologically the world, etc., etc. I certainly agree with Brother Shueib that the world in the post-corona is not going to be the same as the world in the pre-corona. One thing in the political and economic section or segment of assessment is that we are moving, no matter how hard the United States is trying to keep the political and the economic power in one polar system. We are moving towards multipolar system in the world, where China is going to play a major role. Russia is going to play a major role. Those of us that have read Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddamah, The Rise and Fall, we know that ultimately the day will come where even if the threat doesn't come from outside to a particular strong power, sometimes the strong powers are implode from within. And there are occasionally a singular event that leads to this change or shift. 1956 was such and Suez Canal crisis for the British and the colonialism. Afghanistan was for the Soviet Union and the old Russian system. There might be that Corona is going to drain the American power to the point where we begin to see the crack in the system becoming widespread and creating the opportunities for the competing forces and competing political reality to rise up. I disagree with the notion that even the current Chinese could be labeled as communists and communism. These are various mutations of what we call socialist mindset regarding economics, but none of these are actually called true communist ideology that Karl Marx or anybody else in the past has talked about, as we see even within the capitalist system. Capitalist system is not the Adam Smith kind of capitalism. It's various mutation that has come out. So in assessing, one thing is clear. We are moving towards multipolar system in the world.
Correct. Okay, Dr. Katranji, in the few remaining minutes, 2 minutes from now, you have seen Russian medical aid arrive in New York airport the other day. How do you see international relations after the virus?
There's no question. I also agree with Mr. Shueib in his assessment and with the Imam that the entire structure and honestly the multipolarity of international relationships started very clearly post 9/11, with not specifically because of 9/11, but because of the fallout with the Iraq War post 9/11. The coalition, the grand coalition that we saw in the initial Gulf War in the 90s, could not be maintained, and it really started the first strains of populism and centro nationalism that we saw began really rising in the mid 2000s and accelerate under during the Obama administration. So and then obviously we had the economic crisis of 2000, 2008, 2007, 2008, and now obviously we have this healthcare crisis. So I do think that when it comes to these international relations, one has to be very cautious. Why is Russia delivering materials to the United States? Russia in of itself has a coronavirus problem, and they're not reporting their numbers as accurately as they should. We've just discovered, for instance, China themselves, their numbers were far greater than what they've reported on the international scene, both in terms of the number infected and the number recovered, as well as a number that passed away. So at least from a healthcare worker, I'm relying on data. I'm relying on clear information and honest reporting to tell me what's working and what's not working. And because that way I can't formulate an effective treatment strategy without that clear support and that clear information. We need to make sure that these international relationships, as they evolve, that there is a clear check and there's a balance. And I think that's the greatest challenge right now in this multipolarity, the system of checks and balances, whether it's talking about how you treat your own population for healthcare or how you deliver aid from one country to another is completely off the wheels or off the tracks.
Dr. Katranji, thank you very much. I also would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Ibrahim Kazerooni and Mr. Ahmed Shueib. And I will see you all again the first Friday of next month. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.